In this video, I want to explain to you how you plan the project. This is our project. We've got an M5 stack dial, temperature humidity sensor, some relays, and a small solenoid simulating a maglock. And we need to plan the project. And we need to understand what colors we're going to use, what fonts we're going to use, what shapes we're going to use, whereabouts they are, and a whole load of other things. And we need to do this before we start actually coding on the project. And it's always tempting just to dive in, but the truth is a bit of planning can save you an awful lot of time. Now I do all of my planning in Corel. This is Corel Draw. And the first thing we do is we create a specification. So this is our spec. It's an M5 stack dial. We're going to have code entry access for a door lock using the bezel and the switch on the dial. We've got a maglock, 24 volts at 10 amps. We've got a graphical display. We need to be able to unlock it remotely with a mobile phone. And we also want to display some weather information. Now, we don't really want weather information on a door lock, but what I want to do is I want to show you how to use the I2C expansion port on the M5 stack dial, and we're going to use this opportunity to do that. Now, the first thing we do when we've got a project like this is we get a graphics designer involved. And we give them a brief and tell them roughly what's going on, and they come up with this master design here. And graphic designers are brilliant at this. I would never think that mixing white, purple and orange would make anything remotely looking like a decent display, but you can see that the designer has come up with this as a guide to what we're going to implement. And the graphic designer doesn't provide us dimensions or anything, they just give us a feel, a steer for what we're going to do. Now what I then do is I say, okay, we've then got a grid, and I make some grid lines here, and you can see actually the designer's put a quite soft coloured grid in the background of that purple there, and that grid is at 20 by 20 pixel intervals. And then I add some dimensions, and I do this so that I know roughly where all the different assets, the shapes, text and so on is going on the display, and that makes the design process easier. And then what I do is I design the 4 screens that we've got, and you can see that process here. We've got a home screen. The home screen has a purple background with these hatched lines. It's got some text on it and some shapes which are just a bit of fun. And from the home screen we have code entry, and there's the number that we're entering, and there's the overall combination with some instructions. If that's successful, they get a message which is enter, and we display the temperature and humidity. And if it's unsuccessful, they get a denial screen which says bad code, please call reception. Doing this is great. It allows us to plan our project, but also, and perhaps more importantly, it allows others to see what you're going to be doing before you actually do anything. Now, if there's a team of you, avoiding disappointment is really important, and also involving your colleagues is important. And just drawing stuff out like this really explains well to everybody what you're going to be doing. So once I've done this, what we then need to do is go down one level of detail. And I'll show you that on this publisher document here. So in this document, I've got again a rough graphic of what we're going to be doing. And then we need to start defining some things for the programming stage. So to start with, we have to define all the different colors we're going to be using. So we've got a color purple there, which is the background. There's the RGB equivalent. And what we do in Flowcode is we define R, G and B as constants. Now that means that we don't have to keep remembering what those numbers are. So we have constants purple R, purple G and purple B. The same for the light purple, which is the hash background, the orange, white I didn't need to do really, but I've done it. And then I'm going to be able to remember what red, yellow and green are because I've done it quite a few times before. So we define all the colors we're going to be using. And what you really want to do in graphical display projects is you want to keep the number of colors you use down to a minimum. If you use too many colors, it'll end up just looking a mess. We've got some little graphics here, some circles and so on, and we're going to define the positions and the colors of those circles. The graphic designer wanted a triangle. I can't do a triangle, so I'm going to do a few little squared blocks which are diminishing in size, which looks roughly triangular. We define also the location and the size of the bitmap. The bitmap itself is 80 by 80 pixels and it's going to be at position 8080, which is in the center of the display. So we've got the colors, we've got the graphics. We then define the fonts, and fonts in Flowcode are specified in terms of their pixel height, and we define the font type and the color. Fonts are also given numbers in Flowcode, and what we also do then is we declare constants. So heading F is the value is 0, and that means I can just refer to it as heading F rather than 0. I don't need to remember the numbers. There's only one bitmap, so we've got that. We also define the screens. Screens are also represented in numbers, and again we give those constants there as well. So that helps in the coding process. So that, one more thing we need to do, we also need to define the connections on the project. So the display internally is connected to the GPIO lines, as you can see there. It's an SPI bus. The bezel switch is connected to GPIO 5. The encoder is connected like that, and the I2C expansion port is connected, as you can see there. So we declare all of the connections as well. And if you look at the back of this project, then you can see how things are connected. We've got the I2C port and the expansion port there, and I'm just feeding the wires through that panel there. So once we've done that, then we can start to do some coding.